Hello and welcome to this video where I am going to discuss the use of the Vlookup formula in Excel. Basically, Vlookup is probably one of the most used formulas in Excel to return formulas from a different table, but it is one of the ones that is very hard to comprehend. So what I'm hoping to do here in this quick video is go through an example and show how it is done. Maybe in a secondary video then look through the notion of how to actually improve on this formula. So looking here, it is a different table that I am using here as opposed to the table that I used in the previous videos. We can see here that we've got a region and a month. So we can see here east, west, and south, and north, and our monthly figures for each one. You've got a regional annual total and the average. Okay, so obviously if we wanted to place more figures there, we could. And then we have a VLOOKUP sheet, and we've got region, east, west, south, and north. We've got totals. Now if we wanted to, yes, we could use just equal to, go to wherever the figure is, and click on that, and press return. And we have it linked. That is one way of doing it. But for various reasons, you may need to use the VLOOKUP. Now the VLOOKUP is vertical lookup. What it does is quite simple. It takes a key value. So in this case, region. It goes to whatever table you have got the original values stored. Then it goes out a certain number of columns, and it basically looks for the corresponding value in whatever row the key value is stored in. So there is a bit of preparation to do before you do all of this. I would strongly suggest that you do a tiny bit of preparation in order to use the VLOOKUP formula. So first things first is this. Know a few things. Know, firstly, where is the leftmost row of your data that you are getting your information from? So in this case, it is in column D. But we can see here that the entire table goes from D5 to R10. So that is one thing, and we will come back to that in a few seconds, because we will need to do an operation where we will need to name that cell range. The second thing is that if I want to return the regional annual totals, we need to know how many columns you will go out from the leftmost column of this table. Or, now I'm not going to get technical into it, that wherever the key value is stored. But 90% of the time, it will be the leftmost column. It doesn't need to be, but it will be most of the time. So if it was, let's say, for argument's sake, that I wanted to return the regional annual totals in these cells here, I would need to go out 12 months, which is 1 plus 12 is 13, and one more column, 14. So I'll need to go 14 columns. So that actually is another parameter. The fourth parameter in the VLOOKUP is either true or false. Now, there is a reason for it being true or false. Most of the time, it will be false. And what that will do, if it is false, what it needs to find an exact match of whatever value it is using as a key to link the two tables in the leftmost column of the defined range. So in this case, I've got east, and so east, west, south, and north. But if it was easterly or eastern, I couldn't use false. Now, there are instances when you use true, but 9 times out of 10, you will have exact values. Okay, so we might as well do an example of it. But as I said, there's a tiny bit of prep. So I do know I'm going to go 14 rows. But I think the most important thing that you need to do when you're using the VLOOKUP is define the table itself. So this table is where I'm getting the values from. So I want to define that, giving it a name. Now I could not do this, but trust me on this one, this makes it a lot easier, a whole lot easier. So I will select from D5 here to R10. And if I go up here to what's known as the name box, okay, and let's just say click on that name box and give this range an applicable name. So in this case here, I am just going to call it regions. Okay, R-E-G-I-O-N-S, and press return. Now, the significance of that is that I now have a cell range called regions. I don't need to refer to it by the cell reference. I can refer to it by the actual cell name itself. So, first things first, VLOOKUP. And what I need to do is remember, if you're unsure of a formula, use the function wizard. So in this case here, okay, insert function. Now I have used VLOOKUP a couple of minutes ago, so I'm actually just, rather than going through all of them and going down as far as V, I'm just going to use this one here. So if I click on OK, it comes up and obviously the function arguments. Now the first thing here is the lookup value, and what basically that is the key between the two tables. So for this cell here in D4, I'm going to look for the value of east. Okay, so I'm just going to click on C4. So it's basically saying whatever value is in C4, that's going to be our link. The second one is the table array. Where am I getting the values from? Okay, so I know it's actually in the other sheet here, and obviously if you want to drag this out of the way, if I highlight that there, we can see regions. Okay, so I highlighted the range of regions, and this here column index. As I said before, how many columns are you going to go out to reach the values that you want? So as I said before, you obviously include the leftmost column itself. In the example that I've got there, I've got 12 months. So that's 12 plus 1, 13, and one more for the total itself. So that's 14. Okay, so 14. Now the last one here, okay, is obviously the range lookup. Now this will be either true or false. Okay, and we can see down here, it's a logical value to find the closest match in the first column, sorted in ascending order, is equal to true. Okay, so if you put in true, it's going to look for the closest match. But if you put in false, it must be exact. Now I know that east, west, south and north, there is exact matches for each of them. Okay, generally you use false if you're looking for values within a range or something like that. But look, we know that there are the definitive links between them. So I'm just going to type in false. Okay, alright, and we can see here 13330. So if I press return, and obviously if I want to just check back, the total for east, okay, is that. Okay, now the way that I have done it here, C4, regions 14 and false, and if I use the fill handle, I can drag that down. Okay, so that actually gives me that values there. Right, I was able to do that because as I drag this down, C4 in the next one changed, obviously C5. But the great thing about it here is regions stayed the same. Sometimes if you use cell referencing, you have to hold the actual range of cells constant. Because if you're going down one here, you'll also be going down one in the other range of cells. So it's all grand and honky-dory here because east, west, south and north are in that order here. But supposing east was below west in this one, it would make a difference. Now you can try it yourself, okay, but it would make a difference. Trust me in this one, it's better to define your cell range and use that value for the third parameter in the VLOOKUP. So you can see there's C4, so this cell look into the table called regions, go out 14 columns and false. Okay, so if I was to, obviously that would be okay there, but supposing if I was to do this, supposing for one reason or another you wanted to pick, okay, let's just say that you wanted to say, okay, I wanted March's figures, March, okay, so, sorry, I'll just type in March there, okay, March. Okay, I was going to do something here, but I just realized something. So you got March there. Supposing you wanted March's figures. Okay, so it would be Vlookup. Okay, Vlookup. Whatever value here in C4, you're using East. Okay, and obviously then you could go into the other cell, or sorry, workbook, and type look for the regions, or we could just type it in here. And you can see there, okay, it recognizes it as a defined cell range, regions. Now, March. So we will have to pick in the first column, but then January, February, March. So it goes out another 3 columns. So the third value that I type in here is 4 and false. And press return. Now, those are those values there, but obviously I want to make sure that they are the right ones. 130, 120, 140, 110. 130, 120, 140, 110. Obviously, yes, I've got the totals down here. Okay, so obviously if you want to bring them across, you could. But we're not expected to. Okay, so obviously there you can use that notion of VLOOKUP to bring figures across vertically. There is a HLOOKUP for horizontal. Now, I've done easy values there and so forth like that. You can obviously complicate things, but getting it working right the first time, that's a good barrier to get over, and then obviously we can work on from that point. So what I would actually expect you to do, or just for practice, is work out other figures. April, March, well, not March, but April, May, and so forth like that, from this range of cells. Okay, so thank you very much for paying attention. I hope it was some bit of benefit to you, and we'll talk to you again in the next video. Okay, take care and goodbye.